Now that we've built out our support agent, we're going to go ahead and add it to our website. The first thing we want to do is hit publish. This is going to make our agent live, and we can go ahead and call it V2. Now, once the agent is live, and you can see here, it's going to take a little bit to publish, about 30 seconds or so. And once that's done, we're going to go ahead and grab the Webchat snippet. So click Embed Widget, and we want to go here and copy over this snippet. Now, there are some customizations you can do from the tool itself. So for example, I can change the name of the Voiceflow support agent, the description. I can set this, which is chat persistence. So this actually saves variables whenever the user is within the same browser session. So if you capture their name, the next time they open the widget, as long as the browser session is the same, it will still have their name stored. And so you can set this to forget whenever the tab is closed or reloaded, but this will keep it as long as the cookie is there. And next up, you can also swap out the image. So I can change the background color. So let's say maybe I want this to be red or orange, but let's just go ahead and keep it blue. And you can also add your own custom image. Now it's important when you're adding your logo, and this is going to be for when the widget is closed, that you're using a transparent image. Otherwise, it'll show the background of the image. You've also got the image here, as well as the avatar image. If you want to customize further, you can use custom CSS with Voiceflow to really and fully customize your chat widget. And we've seen some pretty crazy things. You can change the typeface, what it says down here, the actual way the buttons look, the color, anything you want. And we're going to show how to do that in a separate video in this section, but you need to get a bit into the widget code to modify it to allow for that. So we're just going to grab the widget here, and just to explain all the different pieces. So this first part is actually loading the widget. So this is what makes it appear on the web page. The second part is pointing to your specific project. So every project has a project ID. So this is the project that we're on right now. The URL is what's going to actually allow it to work. And the version ID is production. This means that whenever we hit publish, this production version is going to update to the latest version that we hit publish on. So let's head on over to our website. And for this tutorial, we're going to use Webflow, but you can use any website builder as long as you have access to custom code. So this is custom JavaScript, so you need to be able to add custom JavaScript to your page. So on Webflow, and this is our old website, so we can get to play around with it, I'm going to go to our homepage settings, and we want to go over to the body tag. So you can see here before the body tag, and all we need to do is just go ahead and paste our script in. So you can see the script is here, and this points to our Voiceflow widget. So let's hit save, and let's see if this was now published. Okay, it's done publishing. Let's go ahead and open this up and see what it looks like. Great, so you can see our Voiceflow chatbot is here on the bottom right. I do have this little edit button, which is annoying, but if I go ahead and open this up, you can see that our chat agent is ready. And so if I say something like, how do I use the API step in Voiceflow, that's going to be live. It's going to hit our knowledge base, and it's going to go ahead and answer our question. Awesome. So let's hit no. It's going to take us into that submit ticket flow, and we're pretty much ready to go on this. Now, a couple things. One is that you can choose to deploy the widget to a specific page. So you'll notice that I only added it to the home page. So if I go ahead and maybe go to this page up here, you'll see that the widget does not exist on this page. So if you want to deploy to all of your pages, you're going to need to do it at the site setting level. And so at least in Webflow, you can choose to add custom code to the page or the site. But if I went home and actually went to my site settings, and I added it to the right here, the code before the body tag, that's going to appear on every page of my website. So you can do that as well. It's really up to you to choose where you want your chat widget deployed. Now, one really cool thing with Voiceflow is that whenever your chat widget has been added to the website, every time you go and make a change to the canvas, whenever you hit publish, it'll automatically update. If I go here and let's make a change to say, welcome to our AI agent on our website, and I hit publish, we'll call it v2.1, and it's done. If we go back to our website, you'll notice that when I open the chat widget here and I restart my conversation, that our new change is already active. So super easy, allows you to basically embed it once on your website, and that way you can go in, you can hit publish in the Voiceflow agent, and that will automatically update for any user that starts a new session. So now that it's on our website, we're going to go ahead and start getting into some more of the advanced stuff, like how do I add custom CSS? How do I do things like make my widget pop up after someone's been on the website for 6 seconds? So we're going to go through all of those in each separate video after this one. Now that we've deployed the chatbot onto our website, we want to start making some advanced modifications to it. Two things I want to do in this video are, one, add those little proactive bubbles on the top of the widget so people can click it more. And the second one is adding some custom CSS. So what we're going to do is click here where it says see documentation. And this is going to walk us through the steps that we need to do to customize the widget. So if I hit see documentation, this opens up our documentation. And you can see that there's a bunch of different things we can do under Webchat. We've got custom forms and extensions that we're going to do in the next video, custom variables, embedding, and custom styling, modify configurations, and much more. So this is what we're going to focus on in this video. It's adding custom CSS as well as adding these cool little proactive chat bubbles to be able to get more people to click on your widget. You'll notice that you can also embed the web chat in your page. So if you wanted an embedded experience that kind of sits natively within your page, you can look through these instructions and do that as well. But let's start off with the proactive text message bubble. So you'll see that in all of this, it provides you something that you need to add to your web chat widget. So it's all of these pieces of code that you can add in and really kind of fully customize your widget. But I'll walk you through how to do that. Not from a code angle. We're going to use ChatGPT to do this just to save some time. If you're a developer, you can go ahead and do this yourself. If you're not, just use GPT. It'll save you tons of headache. So you can see here that there's actually a couple different things you can do. The first one is add in proactive messages. And the second one is you can actually stack them. So you can have multiple proactive messages. Now, there are different things that you can do because we've enabled the code that allows you to add this in. So here's an example where in the code, I'm adding an if statement that says if the page is this product/fire sneakers, then we're going to have these messages pop up. So you can imagine you could probably have conditional messages to say, if you're on this page, show this. If you're on this page, maybe tweak the message. We're going to keep it simple, and we're just going to do this hello world. And I'm going to show you how to add this in. So we're actually going to use GPT for this. So I'm going to say, hey, here's my widget, add this in, combine them together, and we'll go over the output, but it'll give you a sense of how this actually works. So we're going to go and copy our widget. We're going to say, here is the code for our chat widget. And then we're going to say, please add this into it. Now let's go and get the example that's in the page here. So this full example down here that has the .then, this is critical. This is going to actually allow this part to trigger. So let's just copy this. Here is an example. We're going to say, but remove this must be on this page thing. But remove the page if condition. Great. So it looks like it's going to be added in without the page specific condition. And great, it's explaining what's happening as well. So up here we see our regular widget. You can see it added the .then. It kind of clears any previous messages that are above, and then it pushes these messages. Are you interested in some fire sneakers? Come get the chat to learn more. So let's copy this over and head over to our website, and let's add this into the custom code here. So I'll just remove my widget and just paste in a new one and hit save. And let's see if this worked. Okay, so that is deployed. Let's open up this page. Awesome, and you can see down here, I've got these two messages. Are you interested in some fire sneakers? Click the chat to learn more. If I open the chat, it disappears. If I close the chat, it's there, and then I can hit X to clear them out. So pretty easy. I've now got these in here, and now of course I can go back to my code and actually start modifying out these messages. So instead of fire sneakers, you want to learn in maybe some fire software, click on the chat to learn more. So that's a really easy way to do it. My recommendation is that if you're not a developer, just use ChatGPT to add in things like if conditions or additional ones if you want. If you are a developer or you are familiar with code, you can go ahead and just do this yourself, as well as add in any conditional logic. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually stack custom CSS on top of this. So now for custom CSS, we're going to move on to the next part. So what we need to do is add in this assistant section to our widget. Now this will let you override a bunch of different settings on the agent. So you can override the title, description, image. So some of those things that you remember seeing in the customizer in chat, obviously this lets you do it in code form. So you can be dynamic with it. But what we really care about here is the style sheet. This is going to allow us to override the CSS. Now the way to do it with this code is to actually put in the URL of a CSS file that you have. You can host this on GitHub. You just need something that ends with .css, and you can just put it in here and it'll override the CSS. So let's go ahead and actually walk through adding it in here. And you can see that there is a list of classes in the React Chat repository on GitHub that you can use, but we'll just go through and actually copy all the styles out. So the first thing we need to do is add in this section. And you can see it just goes right under your production version ID. But let's just get GPT to do it. Can you add in this section on assistant? And let's just copy this example. Whoops. Great. So it gave us everything, but we can just go ahead and actually just remove this section here. So let's go and copy this over to our Webflow part. So we'll just drop in the new widget here. And we don't need any of these, so let's just get rid of them. Great. So now we've got style sheet, and now basically I just need to add in my CSS. So let's figure out what we want to change here. So let's check out some of the different classes that we can change here. So in this document, it kind of breaks it all down, and I can see that for assistant responses, this is what I can use to target the styling just for the assistant messages. So let's use this, and I'm going to say to GPT, write CSS to make. Okay, cool. So I've got some pretty easy CSS here. So I could go and change this into a CSS file, but I'm going to show you one more trick just in case you don't want to actually host a CSS file or you don't know how, although I would recommend doing that, is you can also use something called the data URL, which basically just converts CSS into a URL that you can include here. So I'm going to say data URL. And now it's going to go ahead and actually do this. So it's going to convert it into base64, and then it's going to add in this part. So once this is done, we're just going to go ahead and copy this over. Perfect. So I've got my data URL. So let's copy this into our widget here, where it's expecting a style sheet. So this URL should work as well. And yep, that looks good. So let's hit save and publish that and see if it worked. Okay, that's deployed. Let's go check it out. We've got our Webchat agent on the bottom here. And there we go. So now the background on our messages is black and the text is white. So quick and easy, how to be able to go and customize the CSS. If you're good with CSS, you can do some pretty crazy stuff. But that's it for this section. So we were able to get some proactive messages on here, customize the CSS. You can also customize the CSS of these messages. And next up, what we're going to do is we are going to play around with extensions and actually embed a custom form into our widget to replace that back and forth that we have during the ticket collection or the book it sales process. So now that we've been able to set up custom CSS, we're going to take the next step and actually embed a custom form into Voiceflow. So this is going to make things like collecting your name, email, phone number, any other information a lot easier. And the way that we're going to do this is by using a feature called extensions. Now, this is one of the most powerful features in Voiceflow and for the web chat. And it allows you to render things like forms, file upload, airline seat pickers, payment modals, authentication, logins, whatever you want to be able to do natively inside of Voiceflow. Now, rather than give you this out of the box, there is a bit of code involved, so we're going to walk through how to do that. But this way gives you the maximum flexibility to fully customize this embedded element in any way that you want. So first off, we're going to go to our documentation again. So Webflow or the web chat documentation. And we're going to go to custom forms and extensions. So you can see here, this gives you an overview of the extensions capabilities. So in this little GIF, you see that we're doing a calendar picker. We've got things like confetti, so being able to actually trigger actions on the page, as well as things like forms that allow you to actually capture information and pass it over to Voiceflow. So I'm going to walk you through how to do this. Now, there's different types of extensions. There's something called a response extension that is rendering a response in Voiceflow, and an effect, which actually triggers something else on your page. So once you get the hang of this, you can actually start doing things like deep linking in your page, opening up modals, all different sorts of stuff. But we're going to walk through the example of a custom form. So we're just going to follow this step by step, and I'll show you how it all works. So the first thing you need to do is create the extension. Now, we've got an example extension here for you, which is the same one that you see in this image. You can create your own. We also have a GitHub repository up here with a bunch of different examples, specifically the ones that are shown in here. We're also going to add these to the marketplace, so it'll be a lot easier to be able to find and access, but the method to install them is going to be the same. So the first thing we want to do is actually add this extension to our website. So the extension is a chunk of code, and we're going to trigger that code in our agent to actually appear. So this is the code for the custom form, and you can see that it's got the script tags already. So right at the bottom, the script tag. And now in this actual code is basically everything we need. So it's saying, this is a response extension. We're going to trigger when we see a step on Voiceflow called custom form. And then we are going to render the actual form. Here's all the formatting, HTML. Here's what I'm collecting, email, name, phone number, And then here's, just some other checks to make sure that the email is valid, name is valid, everything is filled out. So I'm just going to take this and copy it. So we're going to go back to our website and we're going to add that extension right above where we have our chat widget. So again, let's go into the code right before the body tag. And we can see that our widget is here. We can see all the CSS that we had just added to it. And so now I'm going to actually just drop this right above it. Great. So you can see that it's in here. The script tags are required because this is actually going to make it run on the website and actually generate the extension. So the next step is to actually add in a piece of code in our widget that says, whenever you see a step, I want you to trigger this extension that we've now added to the website. So going back to our documentation, looking at step 2 here, modify the chat widget code. You can see that we just need to add under assistant. So we added this in the last video when we added in the CSS customization. We just need to add a line called extensions and then the name of the extension, which is form extension. So you'll remember the name from up here. It's called form extension. So back in our widget, let's go find it. Cool. We can see assistant style sheet. So we're just going to add it underneath the style sheet. So there's a comma here, which is what we need. And so let's just hit enter and paste in extensions. Now, I don't want the CSS to clash, so let me just get rid of this style sheet by commenting it out. So now this should be ready to go. And what we need to do is that I'm going to save this and we're going to do the third step, which is actually triggering the extension with a custom action. Now, a custom action is a custom step in Voiceflow, and it allows you to send a specific message to the web chat to say, hey, here's an item that I want you to trigger. And so in this case, we are going to use the name custom form, and that's going to trigger our extension. Because if you remember on our extension, right up here at the top, it says whenever you see a step or a trace type called custom form, we want you to trigger this extension. So let's go to Voiceflow, and the custom action step is in the developer steps. It's called custom action. And if you drag it out, it looks like this. It's almost like a make your own step. So for the name, we're going to call it custom form. And I'm just going to follow the instructions here because it looks like this extension is actually passing back a message. It's going to pass back information. So I want to have a response called response_submitted. So let's just write that in. Now the way that the custom action works is that whenever this step is hit in your project or in your agent, it's going to send a message to your web chat. Nothing that the user sees, it just sends it all in the back end. And it's going to have a trace type, which is this name. And then it's going to actually pass a payload here. So for the case of the form, we don't need any payloads. But if you're using an extension that maybe renders a calendar link, that's where you would want to include a calendar link with it. But that's for a different video. And we'll be able to try and include some more extensions that you can use to give you a better sense of what you can do with this. So I've created the response submitted path. And the last thing I want to do here is actually check stop on action, because this is going to force the web chat to stop on this step until it receives a response from my form, which is going to make it go down the response submitted path. So let's add this into our web chat and actually see if it works. So we're just going to add it right at the front, and then we're going to go through and actually add it into our book a lead flow or book a demo flow to see what that looks like. Great. So it's in here. Let's hit publish. So we'll say v3. And while that's publishing, let's go and deploy our website. Okay, so that's deployed. Let's open it up. And we can see our widget is here on the bottom. Let's start a conversation. I just have to restart it because it still has the memory from the last one. Start a new chat. We can see that our form came up. So we've got a name field. Let's type in Daniel. Email is test@voiceflow.com. And phone number is 123-456. And let's hit submit. And awesome. So you can see that that actually moved over to the next part of our agent. So now that we know that the form works, let's add it into our book a demo flow. And we're going to actually show you how to capture back that information in Voiceflow. So going back to our agent now, we know that this works. So let's just go ahead and copy this block, reconnect our start step here, and we'll go to our book a demo. So now what we can do is let's modify up this flow. So we don't need to necessarily capture their name anymore because we're going to get it all within a specific part. Let's add in our form step here. And so the form step is going to give us their name, their email, and their information. We still want to use this email classifier. So let's just move these blocks down and we can move this whole thing over. So let's just disconnect this part and we'll submit our form to this step. And just in case someone doesn't give us their email, we still want to do this whole validation. step. And so we are going to maybe just link it up here. So certainly we can get to the sales team. What's your work email? So we can remove this step, make it like this. Maybe actually attach it to the bottom here and then resubmit back to the check. Okay, a little messy, but this is working for now. I could even move it underneath. Great, that looks a bit better. So now what we want to do is figure out how do we capture back the information that we submitted into the form. So if we head over to our documentation, you can see that to do this, we actually are going to use a JavaScript step, and that all the information from the form is actually stored in this thing called last event and then the payload. So when we submit a form, a payload is sent back to Voiceflow, and it's in the form of this last event. So let's just go ahead and add this in. So we're going to say last underscore event dot payload dot name is going to be name, and this is going to be our variable name. So this is the variable we have in Voiceflow, and let's just check what's the email, and the email is captured to email. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll say email equals last underscore event dot payload dot email. And then the last one is phone number. So I don't actually think I have a variable for this yet. So before you can use a variable in the JavaScript step, you need to create it in Voiceflow. So let's just go ahead quickly and put in a variable called phone underscore number. So we're going to add phone number as a variable here. We're going to create that. Now we can use it in our JavaScript steps. So the last one is going to be phone underscore number equals, and let's just see what it looks like in the actual code here. Sweet. So in the extension, it's just called phone. So it's going to be last event.payload. So now this should work, and it should actually take out all the information and store it in variables. So what we're going to do to just check this and make sure this is actually working is we're going to attach this here, and we'll just print out our variables to make sure that it's working. So we're just going to go ahead now and add in our variables. So phone number, name, and email. Great. So this will hopefully work now. Let's hit publish. If not, we can go and debug it to see what's up. So we don't need to do anything else on the website because the code's already in there, the extension in there. All we did is update the project. So now let's just go right to our agent here, restart the conversation. Great. And so you can see it's updated. Let's do the book a demo flow. Okay, so now we've got our form. So we're going to put Daniel D'Souza. Email is going to be test@voiceflow. Phone number is going to be 647-123-1234. Submit. And you can see that all of our variables were saved. And so it was able to get the name, the phone number, the email, and then continue through our flow. And what's great too is it actually used our email validation. So let's try this form again, but now we're going to maybe put in a broken email or something like that to see what it looks like. So book a demo. We're going to put Dan D'Souza. Email is going to be daniel@gmail.com, and phone number is going to be 123. So captured Gmail, and you can see that it's going through my loop of valid work email. What is your work email? So there you have it. We were able to actually embed a custom form in Voiceflow, and because you have access to the code, this lets you go ahead and do things like even add validation. So you can add regex to the email field to make sure it matches a certain format, to the phone number field to make sure it's a certain number of digits. So this gives you real max flexibility over how to use some of these things. It's a little bit of extra overhead, but it gives you full control over what this form looks like, feels like, works, and you can capture all that information back in Voiceflow and continue on with your system. So now let's head on to the next step and final step, which is just showing you how to do things like open your widget after 6 seconds, all which you should be familiar with by now, but we'll just make it super easy. So now that we've gone through all the hard stuff around modifying the CSS of your chat widget, embedding custom forms, adding proactive messages, now we're going to do the last thing, which is showing you how to auto open and auto close your chatbot. Now, by this point, you should be an expert, but we're just going to walk you through it. And again, we're just going to use ChatGPT to make some of the code for us, but that'll give you the tools that you need to kind of customize this in any way you want. So the first thing we're going to do is head on over, again, back to our documentation, and we're going to go to custom triggers. So a couple of the things that we didn't show in these tutorials, but all the instructions are there, are embedding. So you can embed your chat widget as well. We've got the instructions for that right here. Modify configuration. So you can do things like pass a user ID. So very important. If you are using this on an internal website, you can pass a user ID. In here, all you need to do is just basically pass in add a custom variable. So you just basically pass in a user ID like this, And you can pass in additional emails as well, or information like a name and email, ID, user ID, whatever it is on launch. And what we're going to talk about in this video is showing you how to auto open. So if you go to custom triggers, there's a number of different functions that the web chat actually has. So it allows you to load the web chat, open it, close it, show it, hide it, as well as actually make an interact call. So an interact call is being able to trigger the chat to start from a certain point in your agent. And so here's an example of if I had an intent called account services, I could actually have the web chat open on this specific intent. And you can imagine, because it's in code, you can add if conditions, you can start to say if you're on a certain page, then trigger this call. So you can really customize it any way you want. Now, what we're going to show you is how to actually open the widget. So you can see here that I've got my web chat widget code, and then I've got a then statement, which says, first off, load the chat widget. And then we are going to, after 1 second, which is 1000 milliseconds, we're going to open the widget. So this is a force open. So to do this, we just need to add it in the then section. And so rather than break down the code for you, we're just going to do this in GPT. So let's go grab our web chat code. So you can see right now it's pretty beefed up from all the instructions that we've been doing so far. So we've added in an extension, we've added in CSS, a whole bunch of other things. So let's just copy this and we'll just toss this into GPT. Here is the code for my web chat widget. Add in this function to open it after 1 second. And now we're just gonna go back to our documentation. We're just gonna copy this and put it in our chat. Cool. So you can see it added it right underneath the proactive message payload. So let's just go copy this in and see if it actually worked. Oops. So we're going to just replace our script. So we've got our new script in there. Let's hit save. Let's hit publish. Okay. So that's deployed. Let's open up the website and see if this worked. Okay. So we've got our chat widget and there you go. After 1 second, it was able to fully open up. And now we've got our full widget. So you can see here that if I start a new chat, we've got all the functionality that we added in before, minus the CSS, because we did remove that when we did the forms. But if I go book a demo, you can see that my form is in here. I'm able to go through and actually add in all of my information, and that's going to be able to capture it and pass it over to Voiceflow. So there you have it. We were able to auto open the web chat after 1 second. And you can imagine that we can go back into that code now and start modifying it to do things like, open after 6 seconds, open if a user is on this page for more than 2 seconds, open if a user is on a specific page. Because we have access to the code, and this is all at the code level, we're able to add in if conditions all throughout this to really have the chat widget load, appear, trigger at certain points in any way that we want. And because we're able to modify the CSS of it, we're able to embed it, we're able to add custom forms and widgets in here. We can make this look any way we want, add in sort of custom widgets to collect information, authentication. Really, the world's your oyster. So this is now the most flexible chat widget that you'll probably have ever used outside of writing the code from scratch. And so that's it for all the videos in this series. Again, go back to those docs. Those are going to be our source of truth. So anything new that we add to the web chat will be in here. We're going to work on making some of these things easier to do in the product, but today you can do all of these today with a little bit of code. And if you're not a developer, help from a GPT or any other large language model. So thank you so much. If you build anything cool, please post it in the Discord. We would love to see it. If you make any extensions, submit them to our marketplace. We would love to actually put them up there as well and make you a profile on it. But that's all, and we'll see you in the next set of tutorials.